Hey there, everybody. Welcome into Week 9 NFL DFS Made Easy. I'm your buddy Choppadong, smaller ball legend at DFSArmy.com. One-stop shopping, all things daily fantasy sports, basketball, baseball, hockey, golf, football. I cover it all and I show you easy ways to play and easy ways to set up optimizers. So to be honest with you, we're going to focus on setting up the NFL DFS optimizer this week, but we're going to do it in two ways. The first way we're going to do it is box checkers way. The second way we're going to do it is MME. So if you're interested in those two formats, box checkers uses more of a hybridized lineup build where we select players, player pools, go through a little bit of who's safe, who's not, and then MME is wide ass open, guns blazing, and we're just trying to take down big GPPs. So you're going to want to stay tuned for this, but obviously, you go out and you like, subscribe, you smash the notification button, turn those things on so when I drop new free videos, you get those to your phone. And you use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, and you get into DFSArmy.com where you can ask questions and unlock all the tools and do this stuff yourself and learn how to be a better DFS player. All that good stuff gets covered in that little disclaimer I just fired at you. But really and truly, let's dive into a little bit of NFL. You guys, I'm going to stun you with how simple this has become. Everybody thinks that daily fantasy sports is some uber complicated situation where I don't know what stats to look at. Man, it's all bullshit these days. I'm telling you, that shit is over. Projections are so good. The projections are already looking at all the key stats. What are you doing? All you're doing is doubling down on the time wasted that some other nerd behind a computer did for you somewhere. I'm trying to show you to get out of that stupid mindset and get into the new wave. That's very 2012. Get into the new mindset, which is game theory and going up when others go down, eating chalk, playing formations, learning what wins tournaments and emulating those in the optimizers that are already using the nerd projections, that are already using the nerd stats, and have already done all that damn work for you. Stop wasting your time. It's too valuable. So, how do we do that? We use a little article called Box Checkers. Box Checkers is very simple. We're looking at what historically brings value. And historically, quarterbacks that are home favored, have high total games, are efficient with a high QBR, and are under about $8,000 DraftKings salary, those wind up in the Millie making lineup about 74% of the time. Meaning, if you looked at the Millie maker lineups, 74% of the time, it's got a quarterback that hits this criteria. Maybe not all of it, but these categories are very, very important in selecting that quarterback. So it stands to reason. Let's play the odds, stack them in our favor. Josh Allen, not at home. He is favored. He has a high total game. He's a high QBR guy, but he's too expensive. Maybe he ends up in the Millie Maker lineup, but it's not as strong a case as, say, a Lamar Jackson, who's at home, who is favored, who's in a high total game as well, who has a high QBR, and is under $8,000. Lamar Jackson has a better chance, quote unquote, at landing in the Millie Maker winning line. Let me ask you this. If you won the Millie Maker, you smashed your cash games, you smashed your leagues, you smashed your single entries, you smashed everything. So why not just use that criteria that wins a giant GPP and apply it to everything? Well, maybe he's not safe anymore. Are you telling me Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, those guys aren't safe? Is that what you're telling me? Because if so, you really need DFS 101. Because with their rushing floors, they're fine. It's just whether or not you have a good week or not. And to win those tournaments, you need their ceiling weeks, their big, big, big weeks. And who is set up to do that this week? Lamar Jackson more so than Josh Allen. Period. End of story. Move on. Mahomes is close. Say what you want to say about Mahomes. Jalen Hurts, not checking many boxes. Justin Herbert, not checking many boxes. Kyler Murray, not checking many boxes. Dak checks them all. Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott probably ought to be your two prioritized quarterbacks this week. If not, Mahomes and Joe Burrow ought to be on that list. Then you can look at the other guys. I'd call them more tourney plays because, yes, they can go off, but they're probably more suited to be taking on some risk and playing at a smaller percentage of lineups. If you built, say, 100 lineups, you'd probably want more Lamar Jackson and Dak lineups than you would a Josh Allen lineup this week because of the situation. Play the situation, learn what lands in the Millie Maker winning tournaments more often, and use that to your advantage. Notice I didn't talk shit about stats, completion percentage, and all. I don't care. I don't care anymore. My projections have figured that out for me. In the optimizer, my projections will put those guys in the top. All I have to do is indicate in my optimizer which guys I like. Okay? Running back, same thing. Eckler, Kamara, Cook, Zeke, whatever. Zeke smashes across the board. So a Dak and a Zeke stack fundamentally in a cash game is great. They're home. They're favored. They're in high total games. Zeke's getting the touches. He's in the passing game. He's in the red zone. He's 6 to 8K. Dak's under 8K. Boom, boom, boom. You lock up all the tutties in that game. Now, if the game only scores 10 points, you're screwed. But that should not happen more times than not based on this scenario. I love running quarterback, running back stacks in cash. When they're both set to go off and they're both set to have great games, yes, please. Because the odds of one of them letting me down, sure, happens. But the odds of both of them letting me down are pretty bad. If I take Joe Burrow and Zeke Elliott, the odds of both of them letting me down, if the game scores points, the odds of both of them letting me down still does exist. If the game scores points in Dallas, Dak and Zeke, one of them's having a good day. That helps my floor. The idea of cash games and floor is no dud. That's all. And you get lucky if Dak throws Zeke a couple. So, wide receivers, we've got a lot of wide receivers to choose from this week. And tight ends, we only got the one. Now, these other guys are playable. Don't tell me high target guys like Kelsey and Waller and whatnot aren't safe. Don't tell me a Kyle Pitts isn't probably pretty safe. Your question mark comes over like a George Kittle coming back on an injury. Is he actually going to be used? I don't know. Is he going to go out in the third quarter with another injury? I don't know. He's not as safe as the others, so I can keep him to tournament play. And when I want to get cute and get fancy and all that jazz, right? Last week we pegged Jared Cook. Jared Cook, is a drag most of the time, but we pegged him. Why? Because he checked all the boxes. So if we're going to use these types of scenarios, we're going to dive into the Domination Station Optimizer. We're going to focus on a few things, right? We're going to focus on the quarterbacks we like. We're going to focus on stacking QB and wide receiver types. We're going to play quite a few lineups. If I'm only building 3 to 5 lineups, I'm still going to build 25 or 30 lineups in the optimizer. I want to build more because I want it to give me options. I want it to give me ideas. And then I'm going to go through and fine tune it myself. But I'm looking at tournament mode, 3 unique players. Use 2, use 5. I don't care. The more unique players you have, it just mixes them up. If I had one unique player and I had a tight player pool of just, say, 25 players, my lineups aren't going to be very different. But if I have 5 unique players, my lineups are going to get quite different. It's going to shuffle harder the more uniques you use. And if you've got a good core that gets through the cut lines and the cash lines, then you're doing good. To get into the tournament plays, you need to shuffle it harder. And you do that by expanding your uniques or by adding randomness to those projections that shuffles it more. I will allow a player against my defense that doesn't bother me in the least. Last week, I had a Tom Brady, Chris Godwin stack with the New Orleans Saints defense, and it won $500 in quarters. Why? Because nobody else would ever do something like that. So it was unique. It didn't hurt Tom Brady that much. People have these taboos in their head that they won't violate, these rules. It's time to start breaking the rules and realizing that if you're going to beat 25, 50, 100, 150,000 people, you got to break some damn rules. Stop putting rules on yourself. Instead, start taking them off. You will end up with better results, I promise you. I'll limit the flex positions a little bit. I don't like double tight end very often. I'll limit it to a few running backs. I want a lot of wide receivers because wide receivers have the upside. Wide receivers are going to be the ones that when they go off, they're going to win me tournaments, okay? And even if I'm building ladder lineups and hybrid lineups like I talk about in DFS Army, I want that option. I want that ceiling because that's what's going to burn me right through the cash lines as well. I'm not as concerned about a floor anymore because the players that I'm playing against aren't stupid anymore. They're not dumbasses. They're building good, viable lineups. So now I have to build better lineups, which means I have to take a little bit of risk. The days are gone where you just play super, super safe and hope not to trip over your own shoelaces. Those days are over. Learn to evolve with the game. That's what the DFS Army VIP membership is about. So I'm going to dive in and I'm going to limit my quarterbacks to say 20% because I don't want it to give me a ton of any single quarterback. I want it to give me options. I want it to give me a lot of Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, the blue and green guys from the box checkers that I just showed you. Sure, if I like Kyler Murray or Josh Allen, I'll check them back. Jalen Hurts runs, right? Justin Herbert's a good guy, right? Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, whatever. If any of these guys are suiting your fancy, take them. You want a little Tua? Jump him in there. But I only want 20% of them. I want the optimizer to hit a 20% cap and get forced out of there and be forced to look at other options. That's what gives me ideas that might appeal to me when I scan through my lineups. Same thing with running backs, right? I want a bunch of options of running backs. I'm going to key on guys like Kamara. I like Kamara. I'll boost him up in the projections a little bit, right? I like Aaron Jones this week without anti-vax or whatever. I like Zeke. Remember, he was blue. Love Zeke. If these are the things you want to do, you want to pump these guys up. Now, I'll take up to 60% of these guys. Typically, I don't want them in more than 2/3 of my lineups. If I'm only building 3 lineups, I'll take them in 2, but not in 3 because I don't want guys getting hurt. Other rules we'll talk about in deeper detail if you're a VIP. Wide receiver, wide ass open. I want a lot of them. Now, I may not want Devontae or Debo or whatever. Give me some Chase. Give me some Jefferson. CeeDee Lamb, if he plays, would be fine. I mean, I've got to expand. I've got the guys checked, right? Like Mike Williams is in a good spot, right? So we'll boost him. We want a lot of Mike Williams. We want a lot of that. Keenan Allen, for Christ's sake, was way up there. Take a lot of Keenan Allen, right? Tyreek Hill is in a good spot. So, and this is a feel thing. Maybe I bump him a little. Maybe I bump him a lot. Whatever. A little Marquise Brown. They'll be good. All I'm doing is separating the cream a little bit more from the player pool. I'm using the base projections. I'm including a little bit of a boost, and I'm still randomizing them, but generally speaking, the cream rises to the top. When I come down here, Waddle was another one. Love me some Jalen Waddle again. Great. If I want to include these other guys, fine. I will. Like Jarvis Landry's in a pretty good spot this week, being the only guy in Cleveland. He's cheap. I don't mind using him. And then I jump down and I review my guys here at tight end, right? I've got a few of them. I'm good. So now I take this down and I cram off the lineups that are only using these players that are checked. And once it uses those players that are checked, I go back and look. A lot of Jalen Waddle, a lot of Jarvis Landry. If I want to tamp these guys down now, I will. But maybe I only want them in 40% of my lineups or 50% of my lineups. Reoptimize. Now they're only in 40 or 50%. Keenan Allen jumps to the top. I'm more okay with that. Maybe I don't want that damn much Kansas City defense. That's a little crazy. Reoptimize. What I've done is I've set up these rules up here to where I've got a QB stacked with at least one, no less than, at least one wide receiver and tight end. I left the rest alone. If you want to run it back, you set up with the players against, with only one team on the opposing team. You want this QB no less than, you might put no more than one player, wide receiver, tight end, add in the running back from the opposing team. Add that rule, and now when you run the optimizer, you'll get them run back. But for now, it's just going to have a couple of Ravens in the lineup, a couple of Ravens. There's a Chargers. It's going to have a couple of Chargers. And then it may use a couple of other players from other teams, Jarvis Landry, Nick. That's okay. It's okay. It worked just fine last week when I won the quarters. I ran the defense against my quarterback. I had 2 Seattle Seahawks without the quarterback. It worked. It's just fine. We're putting way too much pressure on ourselves these days. But with the 2 minutes that I have left, this is just the gist. You go through here, you start picking. Maybe you don't want the Dallas Cowboys defense, so swap it out manually. Plug all of these into your cash game lineup or whatever. Do it yourself on FanDuel or DraftKings, and then take out Dallas and plug in somebody else on your own. That is allowed, You can do that. These lineups are all competitive and they're great, and they come right off of box checkers. It's just a matter of getting the combinations right. And there's a lot of luck involved there. Speaking of a lot of luck, you want to win these big GPPs, you set the optimizer up the exact same way with your rule of no more than or no less than one pass catcher with a quarterback. So every lineup's going to be stacked. If you want to run it back, run it back. If you want to stack it with 2, stack it with 2. Totally yours. I don't mind letting the optimizer randomize things and plug in where it wants. I'm going to run 50 lineups, maybe more, tournament mode, a bunch of unique players, one against my defense. I'm going to use the tight ends in a wide ass open, a lot of randomness, 25-30% randomness, and I'm going to just let it eat. Same thing, about 20% quarterbacks, about 40% everybody else because I want more spread. And then I'm just going to scan through my lineups. And I'm going to see Allen and Diggs. Fine. And I'm going to see that they're not with a ton of other players. It's fine. A little bit of Gaskin and Waddle, which is a little bit dicey. Maybe I sub out Gaskin. I don't like him much this week. But I scroll through these lineups, and these lineups are all also going to be competitive for those big contests. You're searching for the upside. You're hoping to connect. Stop overthinking this game. That is my point. That's my takeaway. And you set up the optimizer this way every week and you let it go. You're going to have good weeks. You're going to have bad weeks. It's the way it goes. You've got a bankroll to handle that. And if you need that type of advice and need that type of encouragement, come inside, be a VIP. I'd be happy to help you, be happy to talk to you in more detail and get your game on the right track where you can win these tournaments too. Take care, folks. We'll talk to you real soon.